Is that a day or a night?
That's a night.
Yeah, I usually keep my Mondays open for anytime there's anything on Monday, so yeah, I could be around. Yeah,
Well, you'll hear from Herschel schedule.
okay.
It turned out so cool, man.
Oh, that's the one that it's like a replica of the smaller ones, the
This
district
is the
ones.
big one, but
Yeah.
the paint turned out so cool. It's got like 10 coats of clear on it. It's
Wow, cool.
really, really cool.
Looking forward to getting that up.
Yeah, it's been long enough, right?
Yeah, well, wheels move slow.
This is day 5 of the.
Hello, Mike.
How's it going? I see your old man's here.
I know. Oh, no. Uh-oh. Marilyn sent this in. She wanted you guys all to have a copy of it.
Okay.
And this is the bathroom brewery, to the best of my ability.
Look at my glasses, Gary.
Yeah, I've been in contact with him, so
I had to buy two.
I finally
because
emailed
I
him because
forgot my
it sounded like he
regular
was
ones
getting mad
yesterday.
because
I was
nobody was
wild.
responding,
Yeah,
but he
they're-
didn't
they're
ask
just
for a response. And so
cheap
finally I wrote an
razors.
email back and I says,
Yeah, I like
you
them.
have my home phone.
Yeah.
You called me about 5
I still have
times.
my other ones. I just made off without them yesterday, so I had to buy some ATP ones.
Oh, has she? Okay.
So that's all in here.
Yeah, and I told him when I met on the site.
Are you all ready? Okay. Welcome, everybody. Would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming out. The first item on our agenda is our weekly commission reports, just to tell the public what we are doing throughout the week. And so, Commissioner Moore, did you have some activities this week?
I do. I just switched my briefing meetings to Tuesday. Wednesday, I will be attending a CDBG workshop in Olympia. CDBG is a grant that we've used in the past and will hopefully use in the future for projects. On Thursday, I have a Mason Matters meeting in the morning, and in the afternoon, there is a ribbon cutting for Elaine's Country Store that I will be attending. That's it.
All right, Commissioner Olson.
Tomorrow I have a Board of Health meeting. Wednesday is the Veterans Committee at the Memorial Hall. Thursday is the Mental Health Substance Abuse Committee meeting. And then I had just a couple other little notes I wanted to talk about. Today I got a sneak peek tour of the new Transit Community Center. And just to remind everybody, grand opening is April 1st, so it's coming up. But what a marvelous spot. I think everybody's really going to be impressed when you get to see it and the energy that's going to get created down there. It's a pretty cool deal. The other thing is Friends of the Pool have a fundraising opportunity next Monday. If you buy a pizza from Domino's, not a big Domino's fan, but they're going to donate 30% of their proceeds to the effort of the Friends of the Pool. So even if you're not a pizza fan, you could at least get out there and...
Can I say something really quick?
Sure.
I found out from them today that you can pre-order your pizzas and you can get them par-baked.
Oh, okay,
So
cool.
you can get them, they have to
Take 'em home and-
off,
yeah.
yeah, put them in the freezer and
Okay.
you can get a whole bunch at one time.
Good, that's good. So it's next Monday from 4 to 7. I think 30% of their proceeds go to the effort to save the pool or to at least delay the closure of it and see what we can come up with on that. So if anybody's interested, there's your chance. And that's all I have for today.
Very good. And it appears Thursday I will be also attending that ribbon cutting for a new business. On Thursday night, I will be attending a rehearsal for the Mason County Forest Festival Coronation. ceremony, which will be happening on, I believe, Saturday. Saturday is up at the high school will be the Forest Festival coronation, in which most of you all should attend. So that completes our weekly commission reports. Next is a general public comment period. We have a few of those throughout the meeting. If anyone would like to talk about something generally, now would be an opportunity. If not, we will have specific items when you would probably could or not talk. So, nobody signed in. At this point, then, what we're doing is recessing out of our regular meeting and opening a public hearing for an ordinance, and that ordinance is going to be briefed to us by our Public Works Director, Greg Clark.
Mayor, Commissioners, everybody else, tonight is the official public hearing for our Transportation Benefit District. This has been before the Commission several meetings. We started out on February 17th. It was under new business. Then on the Mason County Journal published a very nice article Gordon did on the Transportation Benefit District that was in the February 26th paper. We then looked at it on our old business on the 23rd, which was actually before that article came out, which is what he wrote the article. It was on old business again on March 2nd, and each of these meetings we had people come to the microphone and express their interest and testimony on what they felt needs to be done. We had some difficulties with our publishing in the paper, getting things correct. So actually, we had to have an actual 10-day notice for this hearing, which was published on March 12th in the Journal, identifying tonight as the official hearing, because this has to be done very, very proper in order to be in compliance with RCWs. But the benefit district is allowed under RCW 3673. It allows for acquiring, constructing, improving, and providing for transportation funding. And this district that is before the commissioners for approval tonight, if they want, is to have the city of Shelton be the city limits, or any annexations or anything in the future would be included in that district. So it's really city of Shelton proper. There are many choices that the commission can take with regard to how the fees will be administered, or taxes or other things, but that isn't on the table for tonight. Tonight's hearing is just to establish the district, and then we'll come back with a resolution as to how, depending on what the commissioners want to do. The thing that's been talked about probably the most is a $20 vehicle license fee opportunity that can be elected just by the commissioners themselves, because they will be the board for this transportation district. That vehicle license fee money would be used specifically for transportation and only transportation-related projects, but could be used to be leveraged, so to speak, with grant opportunities that might happen. But we will use our 6-year program process, which comes around in June, July, as kind of the forum where we will dictate where we anticipate that money being spent. And then annually, I believe there's a report that's required that we would share, how it indeed was spent. If we go forward with the, which wouldn't be tonight, but a future meeting on the $20 license fee, it would be administered through the Department of Licensing. We have around 6,500 vehicles in the city limits right now that would allow the city to acquire about $130,000 worth of revenue that could be put towards transportation projects. So it's an opportunity for us. We're really hurting for having adequate funds to do the type of transportation work that needs to be done. A lot of it is maintenance and trying to keep ahead of some of the deterioration in our street system. A lot of streets just need attention right now, so that's pretty much the overview of the benefit district discussion. So I'll turn it over to the commissioners or anybody else who has questions.
Well, we are into a public hearing on this, and we welcome public comment at this time concerning this. So if we have somebody that wants to speak about this issue, we'd love to hear from you now. So we have a list, and the first on that list is Mr. Busaka.
You can't even buy a used retread tire for $20. And I think that, I realize that we all have some compassion for people that are less financially fortunate than we are. But one of the major things that causes poor folks to stay in an economically disadvantaged position is their automobiles. Their automobiles are constantly in need of repair. And so I'm just going to say, I think that even though you're going to have whiners and complainers who's going to talk about they don't want another fee and all that kind of jazz, I'm asking you as the city commission and the mayor to step up and realize that sometimes you got to put on your flak jacket, you got to take the bullets. It's time to look at the city as a whole. We got to do the best thing for the city. We can't worry about the people, because there are people who are always going to complain about everything. Young kids spend too much with their ATM cards, and then they go over to the bank and bitch about the fees from the bank. And so the thing is, there are always going to be people that are going to complain about fees. What we have to do is, we all live in this city. I certainly have committed myself to this city. I didn't build my house to flip it and move to somewhere else. And I would like to see this city step up and improve itself. So I'll shut up at this point to say that I think that the only way we're going to attract businesses, the only way we're going to attract more people to this town is we got to make it functionally better, and we got to make it look better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Terry Jeffries, Commissioner.
Good evening, Commissioners. Carrie Jeffries, 51 East St. Clair Place in Shelton. I am not a city resident, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the County Commission. I'm speaking as a commissioner, number one, and also as a citizen who uses your roads. Unfortunately, for some reason, the legislature has not created a taxing or a funding mechanism for roads and cities. We have a nice one for the county, and unfortunately, we are not allowed to use county road funds to help the city in any way, despite the fact that we do use your roads a lot. The county is one of the larger employers in your city, and we're using your roads quite a bit. The Transportation Benefit District was established in acknowledgement that there wasn't a revenue stream for cities for roads, and so that's why the legislature passed it. I've long time been a proponent for that for the city because I've known the issues you had about not having a dedicated revenue stream. I just want to say that I agree and approve of the fact that you're considering setting up the district. I do want to bring up, as a resident of the county, I'd be more than happy to help pay for that through a sales tax. As a resident of the county, I'm not somebody living in the city. I cannot contribute to the revenue stream at all. But again, I use your roads, I use your stores, and I encourage you to think about a sales tax to help folks do that amount and help have the rest of the folks that do use your roads help pay for them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else like to speak to this issue? Now would be the opportunity. We just need Mr. Davis to come here and sign his name and address for the record. Please.
Mayor, I would like to read into the record a comment that we received from Marilyn Vogler today.
Okay, do you want to do that right now?
Sure.
All right.
If that's okay. All right, Marilyn said, please convey the following to the commissioners as I will be unable to attend the meeting this evening. I strongly support approval of the TBD and the $20 fee that will be placed on license plates, my own included. It is of particular note that the city will be able to spend the resulting dollars on projects and programs of local significance rather than exclusively on projects of regional and state significance that may be eligible for state and federal dollars. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Davis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Tom Davis, 170 West Bushy Road. As you know, I do not live in the city, but I do have property rental in the city boundaries. Right off the get-go, we're off into a discussion that does not exist. This is not a hearing for a $20 tab for your vehicles, an extra $20. So let's put that off the table. Let's not discuss that any longer. What we're talking about is the creation of a transportation benefit district. A lot of other cities have done this. What it does is just open the door. It shows structure, it shows initiative, it shows that if there is money available that can be brought into the transportation benefit district through other means, that at least we have the district created in advance. It seems like people in opposition come down here at the 11th hour after all the work is done, after we talk about it incessantly, and then at the 11th hour they come and they say, oh, this is a bad idea for whatever reason that they have. I just don't want to see this discussion go off the rails when it's unnecessary to do so. If we create the benefit district, the transportation benefit district for this town, what it says to people is that we're willing to invest in ourselves. And we're willing to invest in ourselves, maybe not right this very moment, but we're opening that door. And when you open that door, more people become involved in the conversation of what will happen in the future. So you don't have that shock and awe at the 11th hour. And there's no reason to have that. So doing it in stages makes a great deal of sense. It makes a great deal of sense for the city. Obviously, we need to do something about the roads. I mean, that's clear. And obviously, we don't have any money to do it as it stands right now. So you create the structure first. You have a vision, you have a plan, you have a strategy. And right now, we're having the plan. And we have the vision, we're having the plan, and later on, we'll create the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Toby? And just state your name for the record.
I'm Toby Kevin. I live at 709 Terrace View Drive. And I'm 20 feet short of being a Shelton resident. But as was said by predecessors, I use the streets and the stores. And not for the first time I find myself in mild disagreement with Mr. Davis, but it's mild. First off, for the record, I am in favor of the $20 tabs, but I want to talk about $20 tabs rather than the district. I would be delighted perhaps if Mr. Clark could address controls. I'm not against essentially a new tax, but I'm real interested to see that there be good control of what goes into the plan and good accountability for what comes out. And I think perhaps others like me would be more enthused about fixing some of the more egregious potholes, and K Street is an example of a good story, and be less enthused about just routine maintenance. But still, I'd be delighted if Greg, if you could say a few words about how we plan to manage carefully what the plan would be and then be accountable for the results. Sure. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this issue? Yes, Mr. Cooper. You guys could all shine up earlier, and then we can just call you. But go ahead. I know it's you get inspired when you hear other people speak. That's right. Okay. Just state your name for the record, please.
Thank you very much, Commission. My name is Forrest Cooper. I live at 807 South 14th and also have a business on 409 West Railroad. I stand up here tonight to say kind of what Tom said on the clarification. I just want to remind everybody again and ask for this clarification at the same time. This is just to establish the district tonight. It's not to do anything about fees, correct? Correct? Okay, good. Now, the other question that I have, somebody in the audience asked me, they said, you know what, these fees, what this money could actually be used for? What could it be used for repair of vehicles for some of the city trucks? Could it be used for sidewalks? Can it be used for traffic signals? What exactly can it be used for? What is its strengths and limitations, I should say? That's the question I have. I hope that you can clarify that. Also, if I wasn't mistaken, motorcycles were not on the list of exempt vehicles, as I recall, so those will actually be subject to this fee, is that correct? Do you know?
If it's not on the list.
Because I wonder about that one. I mean, there's a vehicle that for a lot of people is their second vehicle. Myself, it's like my third or fourth vehicle, but they also don't do a lot of damage to the roads, unless you're laying them down and doing stuff like that. So that was one vehicle that I didn't see on the exempt list that I thought if you have a collector's vehicle that's exempt or you have veterans that are exempt, there's stuff like that it seems a little odd. So Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak to this? Seeing none, at this point, if we could just, I think, if you could just address Mr. Clark, Mr. Cooper and also Mr. Kevin had some questions about what the money's for, and maybe you could at least educate us a little bit about that.
More than happy to, Mayor. The revenue funds in the ordinance that reads tonight, that will have its first reading, I'm speculating here, but the revenues of the district shall be used for transportation improvements that improve, preserve, maintain, and operate existing transportation infrastructure for the city consistent with the requirements of Chapter 36.73 of the RCWs. Revenues shall improve, preserve, and maintain and operate the city's various investments in transportation infrastructure, reduce the risk of transportation facility failure, improve safety, or reduce congestion, or stem the expected increase of congestion created by failing roads. As I mentioned, the vision we have in identifying where the monies would be identified to go to the projects. Of course, the commissioners are in charge of where that money will be directed, but this will give them a pool of money that we can focus in the areas that they want to see more things done. I mean, it can be used, it won't be used for vehicles. It'll be used for sidewalks, it could be used for streets, it could be used for repair and maintenance of any of our transportation elements, really. And the 6-year program process is an annual process we do. It looks forward 6 years, and it allows us to program the dollars that we see. Again, it's a planning document, but it plans for the expenditure of those funds. The district requirements require that the city do an annual report as to where the monies are spent. So we will be reporting on where they were spent last year, and probably do that at the same time we do the 6-year program process, and look forward to where we plan to spend the dollars in the coming year and the succeeding 6 years of the document. So, and with regard to Forrest's question, if we do the vehicle license fee, which again, tonight's meeting is to just set the district limits. If the commissioners choose in a resolution in the future to select to engage in this vehicle license fee, $20 collection per vehicles, the vehicles that are subject to the fees, I'll just read them real quick here. Passenger vehicles, trucks that weigh 6,000 pounds or less, motorcycles, commercial passenger vehicles, and trucks that weigh 6,000 pounds or less, combination trucks that weigh 6,000 pounds or less, tow trucks, house-moving dollies, trucks used exclusively for hauling logs that weigh 6,000 pounds or less, taxi cabs, for hire or stage vehicles with 6 seats or less, for hire or stage vehicles with 7 or more seats that weigh 6,000 pounds or less, private use trailers over 2,000 pounds, and then motorcycle trailers, travel trailers, fixed load vehicles that weigh 6,000 pounds or less, motorhomes licensed as vehicles. Exempt vehicles are all farm vehicles, campers, off-road vehicles, snowmobiles, mopeds, personal use trailers that have an axle load of 2,000 pounds, less than 2,000 pounds, commercial trailers, combination trailers, trailers used exclusively for hauling logs, horseless carriages, collector or restored plate vehicles, converted gear, government vehicles, private school vehicles, and vehicles properly registered to disabled American veterans. So that's the list of the two, so exempt and those that would apply.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay, questions or comments?
One of the comments I wanted to make was in the RCW, Greg, and under use of funds, as you read along there, it's, as you were talking about, transportation infrastructure, reduce the risk of transportation facility failure, improve safety or reduce congestion, or stem the expected increase in congestion created by failing roads. I'm not sure that sidewalks would be, unless you're doing a complete new street, that I certainly wouldn't want to use them for sidewalks. It kind of leaves it a little bit, like it's not really giving you the impression that it can be used for sidewalks. And that's part of why I'm glad we're forming this now, to give us some time to iron out a lot of those questions that people have and details like that. Can it be used for sidewalks, repairs as such? As I read this, it kind of addresses more of what I'm reading into it as roads specifically. But that's information would be good to find out. Somebody mentioned traffic signals, which is part of transportation, so I assume that it could be used in that situation. But once again, you create the plan, the 6-year transportation plan, priority list, whatever you have money comes to us, and then we discuss it publicly and go from there is the way I kind of see this thing going.
In response to that, certainly we could get a legal opinion from our city attorney.
Yeah.
The way I read it was it's transportation improvements, anything to do with safety, maintenance, transportation infrastructure, which non-motorized is included typically in transportation infrastructure. So again, it's your choice as commissioners as to where that money is directed. If you choose not to put them into sidewalk programs, then we wouldn't. It's I think really, my read is that it would be eligible for sidewalk-related projects, but it may not be. We'll have to ask Kathleen.
And also another point further on, as you read the RCW on this, there is a provision in there for low-income people as a rebate program where they can get like a reduction down to 40% of the tax or fee. So it is addressed in there that it recognizes people's economic abilities to be able to pay this and not. And then my last point I'll make is that as we just said through the Forterra briefing last week, I think I counted no fewer than 10 or 12 times where they kept mentioning pedestrian mobility, transportation, all these things that really are a huge deal for all communities. And this ties perfectly into what they're trying to create as a visioning process for our whole community, in that transportation has to be addressed. And I'm sure they're going to come up with some ideas for us. And how are we going to fund them? You know, this is a perfect way that we're going to have an opportunity to do this. So I'm in full favor of establishing this district. So that's all I'll say.
I guess when I look at the use of funds, I'm really in favor of the goals of creating complete streets, which would include availability of alternative methods of transportation. So I would really like to get that cleared up to make sure that we can use those funds, or at least I would be in favor of using those funds for sidewalks, for pathways, for bike lanes. I think it would be included in that. So I had another question here too, is under the governing board, on C it says, the mayor shall serve as the chair of the district board and shall preside over all meetings of the board. And I wonder, is that a requirement, or could we use this as, like we do the Metropolitan Parks District, where that any one of the commissioners could serve as the chairman of this group?
It's my understanding in talking to Kathleen that as the district is now formed, you as the commissioners who would be the governing board for the district can elect your own bylaws, whatever you choose to do. So I believe there is an opportunity, if you want to elect another individual, another commissioner or whatever as the head of the Transportation Benefit District, you could do that.
Okay, so at what point would the wording be changed for this?
It's in here, it says the mayor right now.
That's me.
Uh-huh. Well, I guess you could discuss it, how you want to do it, and we could change it in the second reading as we bring that forward.
Okay, I just think it works well when we can switch off some of those duties. That was
Okay.
all my questions. I definitely am more in favor of the potential sales tax increase as a way of funding this. I think we'll get more money, and I think it more fairly places the cost to all the people who use our roads rather than just the city residents.
Okay, yeah, I think you have a good point. It would be, if by chance I did vote against this tonight, it probably would be good that I didn't share it, because I might have mixed feelings about how I feel about it. But I'm against it for a number of reasons. And the main reason isn't because I don't want money to go into fixing the roads. I mean, anybody knows we really need money to fix the roads. The main reason I'm against it is because there's a lot of things that aren't quite right with it. And I'll just explain them in a very civil way. Number one is we're putting a, sorry, Mr. Davis, a $20 or more or less fee on the poorest of poor. A lot of the people who live within the city limits are on a very low income for something that they use the least amount. So, you know, the county residents, they're not paying into this for the city, and then pass-through traffic, they're not paying for this. And so, you know, off the bat, it doesn't, I don't like that. The other part in here talks about a fee that we can, gives us authority to impose a fee up to $20 per vehicle without voter approval, as if that's a major accomplishment. It's not my goal to do things without voter approval. It's my goal to do things with voter approval. As a commissioner, as the mayor of the city, it is my desire to serve the people within this little postage stamp lot here called Shelton, Washington. And if it was put today for a vote of the people that live inside the city limits, I would be probably pretty well convinced it would not pass. And thank you. And that's how I make my decision. I have to determine, what do these people want? And I think what they really want, they want us to do a lot more for a lot less. We are continually, and this is the smallest, this issue is a very small issue. I could easily just say yes and go along with it and go along with it, but I have seen the $9 million things go through just as easy. And we owe so much money, and we have such a small income base to draw from, that at some point, and I've chosen to dig my feet in the sand and say no more. I just don't want to keep imposing any fees or taxes on the people in here until we, the commission, can get our act together maybe, and we come up with policies and we come up with ways that we can get more income into the city, not take more income out of the city. It's not simple, but I will say that I don't like the idea of doing something without the vote of the people. I don't want that authority. I want to support what the people want. And I think they want us to do more for less. I would really say that. And I wrote, 3 weeks ago, I did a letter to the editor where I named a number of things that why I think we need to stop raising taxes and fees on this city, and that I think there are other ways to do things. And in my letter, I said this. I said that if the economy doesn't turn around real soon, or we lose a major employer, all of this stuff is paid for on the residents inside the city, and they are saying no more. A vast majority are saying stop this. Well, 2 days ago I got a phone call, major employer, one of the largest, 230 employees, is leaving town. Okay, and that's Olympic Panel. Okay, so in this little fee, and this is the smallest of all the kinds of things that we do, but along with any tax increases, in this environment, I said that before we lost the major employer. So I'm very concerned about continually trying to get blood out of a turnip, to use an old country phrase, and so that's why I'm opposed to it. Do I want pavement and street? The other deal is, what's $100,000 going to do? I mean, are we going to pave 2 streets? Is it really going to take care of that many holes that Mr. Bisaka, basically his car won't hit? I mean, it's so small, but it's such a major statement and such a major effect on the city of Shelton's pocketbooks, for especially low-income people, that I don't like it. And so, but I can do this in a polite and civil way. I can express my opinions and let people know where I am. When we vote on it, if it passes, I'd be happy to take the money and put it in the streets. and then we'll get on to the next issue as we always do. But that's my opinion on this, and so I feel pretty strong about it, that I'm willing to dig my feet in the sand here and say, we got to come up with a better way to fund the city than continually trying to get the money out of these people. So that's probably my same story. I think I've been saying this over for 4 years in a row, and I don't change very often on that. So we've talked a lot about this, and we've had our public input, and what we have now is...
I got another couple comments.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
First of all, I agree with Commissioner Moore that I'd like to rotate the chairmanship around if we do approve this. The other part is you keep saying raising taxes and getting blood out of a turnip. You know, when we agreed to spend $30,000 on a lobbyist, like you out of your own words to say you got to spend something to get something.
Absolutely.
What's $120,000 going to do us? Well, it's more than what we have now. So I think that your argument of the fear of you're instilling in people that we're not going to, move forward in the future is kind of hollow, that we have to do something, like Mr. Busaka said, let's stand up and take the flak. If we want to create something, we've got to take the chance and we've got to move forward. If we're going to live in fear for the next generation, then, we're not doing our job, I don't feel. I think it's poor leadership to throw the fear out there to people that we're a failing community, we're a poor community. I just mentioned that the lower income people have a rebate option in this thing, so that the cost for them, and if we did this, would be maybe around $10. So I think addressing those issues, for the greater benefit of all, is what I'm trying to do with this thing, and I'm ready to move forward with it, with the one change on C under the governing board. That's my final comment.
All right, thank you for your comments. Here's what we can do, is I think we can we need to do a motion to change that wording before you do a first reading. Is that what we would do? Is that how you would change that?
You can just direct them to change it.
Okay, why don't we direct them then to change that? Just put that any commissioner can be the head of that.
Okay.
And again, sometimes I feel I don't like commissioners, doing too much rebuttal. My big concern is the huge loans. I'm talking millions of dollars, multi-millions of dollars. Lobbyist money, $30,000 investment for a $1.2 million is a pretty good return. And that's what we're looking to probably get out of that $30,000. So rather than get into tit for tat and whatnot, let's at this point, I think we've made our minds up. I think we're ready to close this here. So at this moment, we're closing the public hearing and returning to the regular meeting. And it appears that we concur that have first reading on this. And what it is Commissioner Olson and Commissioner Moore are in favor of it, I believe.
I am very much in favor of it.
Okay. And Commissioner Krantz, that's me, is not in favor of it. So, but because we rule on the majority, what we will do is at this point ask for a first reading. Fair enough? Okay. Leslie Ann, could we have a first reading?
Ordinance number 1869-0315, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, creating a new Chapter 12 of the Shelton Municipal Code for the purpose of establishing a transportation benefit district.
Okay, now we are going to recess out of our regular meeting and back into a continued public hearing on ordinance 1866-0315. And this will be presented to us by Mr. Steve Goins, our Community and Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We're continuing the discussion on an amendment to the municipal code relating to historic preservation. It's Chapter 2.76, and mainly it was dealing with some bylaws that were being amended. You heard testimony last week on this item. In summary, there were some comments about the lack of provisions that create a process or create some framework for what sort of behavior might be resulting in the commission considering removing one of the board members from the committee, or that the committee members, the board members work at the pleasure of the commission, and it's the commission's prerogative to continue that. In response to that, staff's provided a couple revisions in the resolution for consideration. The first one, I believe you'll find that the added language has been highlighted in yellow on the first page of this version. it described in more detail the types of activities that might result in a board member being removed, and I'll read this for the record. The language as it's currently worded said, members of the board may be removed before expiration of their term by a majority vote of the city commission. What has been added is the following: for neglect of duty or any malfeasance, including obstructive, unethical, or uncivil behavior, and in considering reasons for removing a board member, the city commission should consider attendance as one, being absent from 3 consecutive meetings or more than 4 in a 12-month period. For unethical behavior, this would include using their position as a board member for purposes not consistent with historic preservation objectives, or taking action under circumstances which pose a conflict of interest. And third, obstructive behavior, being disruptive during meetings, making insulting or denigrating comments to other members or meeting guests, and or engaging in behavior that affects the ability of the board to perform its duties. Staff could leave this open to the commission for consideration. Also included in your packet is the resolution as it was drafted and presented last week that does not include that descriptive language as read. A third consideration, if you would be to simply include the first sentence that was added in the initial version and leaving out the specific examples. The pros and cons of that might be you're not necessarily getting the benefit of a more in-depth understanding of what was meant by those different activities, but on the other hand, you might leave out something in those descriptions that could be something you'd want to consider. And rather than trying to identify all the different elements that are possibilities, leaving that out might be an avenue for other considerations. So with that, that's a conclusion of my staff report.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and we have room for public testimony concerning this. Does anybody like to speak concerning this issue? Seeing no one stepping forward, I think I had some thoughts about it last week, and I probably have changed my mind and think that this is a good idea, because we are the commission, and we need the right to look at these committees of volunteers and have some input on whether or not we think they should be on them or not on them. So that's where I am on that. So any other comment or questions?
Yeah, I think as long as we're going to have a wording in there, I think it's better to have it as clear and precise as possible with no room for misunderstanding. So I agree with your highlighted version.
As do I.
Okay, so it thinks we have enough information to recommend for first reading on this. So I will now at this point close the public hearing and return to our regular meeting. And Leslie Ann, could we please have a first reading of this ordinance number 1866-0315 and place the second reading on the consent agenda for March 30th, 2015.
Ordinance number 1866-0315, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending Chapter 2.76 of the Shelton Municipal Code, and ordinance relating to historic preservation.
Okay, thank you very much. Are we ready for a reading of the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, Leslie Ann, could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda. Commission meeting minutes from business meeting of March 2nd, 2015. Study session of March 9th, 2015. Business meeting of March 16th, 2015. Ordinance number 1867-0315, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending Chapters 20.52 and 20.53 of the Shelton Municipal Code relating to comprehensive plan amendments and rezones. Ordinance number 1868-0315, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, relating to establishing development agreements adopting new Chapter 20.55 to Title 20 of the Shelton Municipal Code. Angleside Booster Pump Station Site Work, Cayman Excavation LLC, in the amount of $261,591.34, and authorize the mayor to sign when returned from contractor.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda passes. There is no old business tonight, but there are several items under new business, and the first will be a resolution that will be presented to us by our Police Chief, Moody.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm here with a couple items tonight, the first of which is the Shelton Police Department is requesting a surplus of a 12-year-old patrol vehicle. The repairs over the last 12 months have become costly. We removed all the items that are reusable out of the vehicle, and per the resolution, we'd like to dispose of that vehicle. We request the sales proceeds from the sale of the vehicle be put back into the police vehicle fund to fund existing equipment or future equipment. And that's all I have for you on that one.
All right, any questions or comments to Mr. Moody?
No?
We have a history in the city of Shelton of really being good on the used cars and the new cars and saving our money, and so we appreciate that tradition will continue on and that we'll get the best bang for our buck out of the used police car. I think it said in there it's not worth very much, but park the thing out and get some money.
Every little bit helps.
Sounds good. Okay, so at this point, we agree, I believe, that we can place this resolution 1078-0315 on the consent agenda for March 30th, 2015. Next item is another presentation by Chief Moody, and this is concerning the WestNet Interlocal Drug Task Force Agreement.
Mayor and Commissioners, as you know, Shelton Police Department has been involved or a member of WestNet for about 20 years. Our current agreement expires June of 2015 for the Interlocal Drug Task Force Agreement, which will take effect July of 2015. We currently have one detective assigned to WestNet, and the expenses and revenues are included in the department's annual budget. This is simply a staff request approval authorization from the mayor and myself to sign the WestNet agreement for the next year.
Any questions or comments?
No, I think it's very valuable.
I think we all can agree this is a good thing for the city of Shelton, so can we go ahead and place this interlocal agreement on the consent agenda for March 30th, 2015? Thank you there, Chief Moody. All right, next we have a briefing by Mr. Steve Goins here on the Forterra planning process contract there.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners.
You see how short he does his?
I'm trying to be
He
very
steps up,
fast.
you got two of them done just like that. You bring out videos and you got all kinds of props and balloons and stuff, just watch that man. He really moves it.
I'll do what I can. Thanks, Chief. This is for consideration of a services contract. As you're well aware, we have been entertaining entering an agreement with Forterra to help us with the downtown visioning process. This would be done in coordination with the Chamber. We've had several discussions about forming this partnership, and Green Diamond Simpson have agreed to match the funding that was raised by the Chamber. In turn, the city agreed to match a third of the overall cost of the money, and that's the proposal that's before you tonight. Each of the entities would be responsible for a third of the overall contract for these services. The specifics are described in the scope of work attached to the contract itself. As you're also aware, there was some discussion about the timing for which this would come forward. We believe we've worked out a mutually acceptable way to move this contract forward. Our recommendation is to authorize the mayor to sign the contract once it's returned and executed from Forterra representatives. The Forterra folks understand the structure that we've provided here. Initially, there was some discussion of when the money would come in and who was getting the money. Both Green Diamond, Simpson, and the Chamber are desirous to make their contributions directly to Forterra. Forterra understands this and has no issues with that. The city would be responsible for the final third, if you will, of the overall package, and we would make those payments as part of the contractual arrangements as deliverables are made to the city. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I can follow up on that.
Questions or comments?
So You said our third isn't due until the final third? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, we would receive invoices and work would be charged off against the work as is performed. The last of the effort is the Phase 2 and the second public workshop, and that's really the bulk of the services. Once that final deliverable is made, which includes a report on the design findings and all the recommendations are made, we'll get a final invoice, and the city's third will be due against that last portion because a majority of the contract is tied up in that second phase.
So that's assuming on schedule that the chamber comes up with their third in a more timely manner? Because otherwise, how are we going to be able to, or how's Forterra going to want to proceed?
Our understanding is Forterra is willing to proceed once they've received their allocation from Green Diamond and the chamber. We further understand that Green Diamond Simpson have already made their entire contribution. The chamber's been working at trying to finalize their contribution and make that installment to Forterra. At that point, Forterra has indicated to me that they would sign the contract and they would get the project underway. Whether Forterra agrees to do that or not doesn't put the city in a position where we're responsible for that funding, however. And that was one of the benefits, I thought, of the structure as we have it now. If Forterra signs the contract, that doesn't obligate us to make up that difference. The chamber's still obligated to make up the payment that's their third.
So we would still not provide our third, though, until the chamber has fully provided their third. And Forterra's okay with that, waiting?
My understanding of how this contract would work, if there was some sort of lack of payment, is our obligation is capped at $18,000. If at the end of the process and the deliverables made, our obligation is to pay the balance of that $18,000, whatever the remainder is. And if the other entities have came up short in their contribution, it would be Forterra's responsibility to go to seek out getting payment in full. That wouldn't be our responsibility.
Okay, that's all I got for right now.
So we will get a completed product and a completed process either way, and it'll be at the end of that any funding difficulties will be ironed out.
That's my understanding of what this contract obligates Forterra as well as the city. They're, by signing the contract, obligating themselves to complete that, provided we make our payment and we get the deliverables, and they become our property.
Any other questions or comments concerning Forterra? Forterra, I think, is a great opportunity for the city of Shelton to move forward on improving our image in the world, and I'm a great supporter of that. So at this point, it looks like we have enough information to move this forward and place this on the consent agenda for March 30th, 2015.
Is there a time of the essence type of deal in this?
There certainly is. We've been anxious to move this item forward for some time. The anticipated kickoff for this is April 10th, and we're trying to get the word out about the noticing of the community about this walking audit and the first workshop, which would be the next day on April 11th. We are poised to do a press release and start to get as many people as we can engaged in that process and get them present. And we want to give Forterra as much time as we can to get these other sub-consultants under contract as well. And so that was my urgency in trying to come up with a way to get this contract and come together and move forward. Yet certainly time is of the essence to move this ahead. We were not requesting for this to not be placed on consent. If the commission chose to, that would be great for me. And I'd be glad to have the extra time to help this along.
Yes, Mr. O'Leary.
Just a question. The Forterra, geez, I got distracted by what Steve was just saying. You'd indicated earlier that we would pay the last third of the contract. So, in other words, the first $36,000 would be paid for by Green Diamond and by the Chamber. Does the Chamber, I didn't read that in the contract, does the Chamber know that that's, if you got a verbal from them, that would be the expectation?
The verbal from the chamber was that they would complete their funding requirements, in fact, prior to the first workshop, and that they would pay that money directly to Forterra.
All right, any other questions or comments?
So the chamber will come up with theirs before April 10th. That's kind of the indication you're getting?
That's the indication I've received.
Okay.
All right. It appears that we concur on this issue to place the Forterra Planning Consultant contract on the consent agenda for March 30th, 2015. Next is the infill lot, frontage improvement standards update, and this will be my Mike Michael.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'll try and make this as short as we can, since we've talked about this lots of times already. Really just kind of bringing everything back to this evening after final consultations with the city's attorney, review of the Bonnie Lake program that she recommended, and really making sure that the final package that we put together meets with the commission's after, and if so, moving it forward to a public hearing on the actual ordinance to implement it. So essentially, the standards themselves have not really changed. We've tweaked some of the language and cleaned a few things up, but the basic standard still is that infill lots in the residential zone, or projects in general in the residential zone, NR in particular, on existing lots would have an option moving forward of either building frontage improvements to the newer standards that we developed without the city's engineering input, or paying a fee in lieu. And really what we're bringing forward tonight is that final piece, the fee in lieu portion, and the draft ordinance that could enact that if that's what the commission sees moving forward. The breakdown of the fees for the various different types of lots has stayed within the standards, and you can see in the packet I have two versions, the final standards update that would be published for everybody that has hard copies, and underline and strikeout version that shows the difference between what was adopted a year and a half ago now, almost 2 years ago now, and what we're proposing. In that we have the flow chart, the decision matrix that shows us what the different fees would be based on the base fee, which is included in the code itself. Kathy Byerly did come to me late this afternoon with one minor change that we have to include in there. She reminded me that we don't have a separate street capital fund. It's included in our capital facilities fund, so there's a minor wording change in the ordinance that needs to be made there. Also, I'm understanding that at the agenda setting meeting last week, it was determined to move this forward to next week for the public hearing instead of the 6th, as is noted in the briefing document. With that, I'll wait for commission's questions, discussion, and directions.
Questions and comments for Mike Michael?
On your flow chart, where it says you get down to survey required, is that spelled out that it's the owner's expense on that in the ordinance, or is that just on your flow chart?
That's just in the flow chart. That's in the standard. We left as much of this in the actual standards as possible because the standards we can adjust administratively on an annual basis. The more that we have in the code, the more times as we find things we want to tweak, we have to come back with additional ordinances to adjust the code. So based on Kathleen's recommendation and what Bonnie Lake did, we kept the majority of it in the actual standards. Because there's such a major change, we've added those standards change to this ordinance the first time around, but that doesn't preclude the original administrative option that was in the original standards update a year and a half ago.
Mike, Yen, he was asking about whether the builder pays or whether the city pays for the survey under the scenario?
It is, I would have to go back and look at the exact language in the standards that are here. But if it's not as clear as the commission would like, it's, we can change it now. If it's still not as clear as we like, then again, we have a lot more flexibility to correct that administratively instead of with additional ordinances.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I've heard from a number of builders, is the confusion. They like the idea that they know going in at time of application exactly what the requirements are going to be, rather than get halfway through or get the permit back and, oh geez, I didn't know I had to do this.
Well, and that's one thing with the way we've structured it, that even without language changes, when a builder's coming in and asking questions, we can go out and do that initial determination of the right-of-way before they even apply, and so we can know at that time whether we agree on that right-of-way determination or not. And so they would go into the application process knowing, no, we don't agree, so I'm going to have to do a survey on this to make it work.
So there'll be like a fact sheet or something presented at application time so that this can all be handled before the permit's even routed through the application and even begun to route through the department. So
Yeah, that's definitely something we could adjust in our process to make it a little bit easier and a lot more clear, so.
I had a question, just to follow up, and then you can go back if you want. Let me get this kind of clear. Okay. You have existing city lots that we have builders that want to build on. From my experience, is that if you have corner stakes in ground, if you have fence lines, that it's you as a builder are saying, this is where they are, that there's some stakes there, and the builder takes the responsibility on that. He doesn't have to hire another survey if you have existing pins.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's
so
all.
once that survey required, that's your discretion on whether those pins are, you don't require another survey if he has located the corners of the property.
Correct. If we've got good, accurate, newer pins that have the standard surveyor cap on them, we can identify that they are legitimately surveyed stakes, then that's our ideal basis to determine where that property line is, and there should be no disagreement on the right-of-way property line at that point.
Okay. Let me follow up my question then. Let's say they're not the new pins with the little plastic ends on them, but let's say that you have two houses on 60-foot lots on either side, and you have a 60-foot lot where we have just made taken down an abandoned house, and we're ready for somebody to build on that lot. You have two fence lines, two existing, and these are older pins on the other. But it's pretty definite that if you measure between the two existing houses, you got your 60-foot with your setbacks, no survey would be required if you...
Probably not. We're going to have a little bit of cushion in our determination of the right-of-way line, but not as much as if there was no utilities, no existing fences,
no pins, no.
Exactly.
To clear that up, we don't care. That's the builder's responsibility side to side. We're only working with the right-of-way. It doesn't matter where the fence lines are between houses or lots. It's only the right-of-way that has to be determined. And as we talked before, the city crew, maybe Greg or Craig Gregory, whoever would go out and to the best of everybody's ability would say, this is what we believe to be the city right-of-way. If that's not acceptable to the builder, then they can have the option of paying for a survey. Otherwise, that is considered the standard for the city.
Okay. And the reason that I'm talking about this in all candor is that I asked and I got the fees on what it costs to do a site improvement in the city of Shelton. And that comes to $19,800, okay? Now, if you want to put a mandatory survey on top of that, then we'd add that on top of that. And that's before you buy the property, and obviously before you build the house. So we are pressing the envelope here on costs to people to try and improve these lots. That's why I'm talking about this. If you want to require a survey, just understand that's, if you have proof in the ground or pretty substantial indicators that say this is where it is, requiring another requirement, it isn't going to, I think, jumpstart the city's economy. So.
Yeah, and we do have a pretty good procedure for using existing features, including older survey marks that has been used for the fence permits for some time, since shortly after I came to the city. And that's worked fairly well for that program. We're going to use basically that same procedure for making a determination on the right-of-way line as part of this program now. And we think that really the amount of times where in this situation, the existing NR zoned lots, where a survey is going to be required is going to be very limited. You're going to be on some of those outlying properties up on the edges of the NR zone where there's not a lot of development already, is where this probably is going to come into play.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I would just like to thank staff and thank Commissioner Olson. I know that you've worked together for a long time and put a lot of hours into this. And I think through reading through it, even though I've never built a sidewalk, I think it's pretty clear what the options are. And so I'm in favor of this as it is written.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none.
Before we end this, this may be the last word of it all. I just want to walk through the chronology of this in my time. You know, when we started, it was full meal deal. Curb, sidewalk, gutter, survey, design, hence coming up with these figures of $18,000, $19,000. The last time when Commissioner Pennell was still here, we went to the standards of the city paying for the design and the survey work and being able to pour a cheaper version of the same sidewalk, bringing that cost down substantially, but at the same time increasing the cost to the city, which we could not afford. So now the third version here, we've wiped out everything and we're back to what I believe Mayor Kranz has always advocated for, if you don't mind my saying, the Wild West days.
Yeah.
You know, this looks good, let's do it here. And there's some merit to that, you know, with staff and the public works guys being able to determine, yeah, it looks pretty good right away. Letting the builder have some more control over what he determines as the grade, slopes, things like that. So we've reduced this down to what, at the most on a 60-foot lot, it may cost you less than $3,000 to pour a sidewalk and grade it to what now the city wants versus even right now if you did one, it would be more like the $7,000 or $8,000 range, plus the city's contribution of survey and design. Okay. So I think we've gone a long way from the, I'll call them the sidewalks to the future, where there's missing pieces we'll get to in the future, to where now it's much more reasonable to everybody.
You know, we still do have the oddball industrial, commercial, odd zoning area projects, Front Street Pump Station, Neyland Park, the substation, those projects. We still need to take these ideas and figure out how we work around those types of projects as well. But I think this is a good start. It gives us a framework to look at the rest of those oddities we've talked about as well.
So I would just like to piggyback on what Commissioner Olson said as far as, okay, arguments should be gone as far as how expensive it is to build on our lots as far as frontage improvements. So maybe we will see some increase in building at this point.
I would like to just kumbaya that one, but unfortunately, I'm the one that just said it's $19,800 with the $3,000 fee for no sidewalk in front of it. So unfortunately, I would say our costs to build in the city are still way too high. And so how we address that, what we do in the future, I think there are alternatives. The problem is the facts are, and you got to go to the facts, are we are not doing anything. There are no new houses being built. There's no houses being built in the old neighborhoods. So we can't put something to rest unless, why was that just because our streets aren't paved that people aren't building houses? If you can make a dollar, if there's money to be made in building in the city limits of Shelton, people will build here. And that's our problem. So I don't think it's bed to rest. I don't think we've gotten to Dream Street yet. I think we still have huge costs to build because it's just $20,000 here, $20,000 for a lot. That's $40,000, $45,000. Now we're going to go ahead and build a house. There just is no profit there. That's why people aren't rushing in to build on these lots. So if there was a way, in my opinion, to put a moratorium on things like this, or something, we would at least get some activity, we get some hookup fees, we would get some money. But at the moment, the facts are that nothing is being done, that people aren't rushing in to build in our city. And I would like to see that to change. I love my city, and I want my city to grow and be a wonderful place. But we have to have policies that encourage growth. And unfortunately, I still think $19,800 is too high. So the discussion is what the discussion is. But back to this, I think we are in agreement to put this forward. So any more questions or comments on this? Yes, Mr. Clark.
I just wanted to make one comment because I don't think it's been said. The people that don't put in the sidewalk, that will pay this frontage improvement fee, the vision on that is that will be a small pool of money that we then can have our crews go in and make the connecting links happen to connect the sidewalk pieces, so we don't have sidewalks to nowhere.
Absolutely.
And I think that's just a really good spin off of this vision.
Very much so. So are we ready to move this forward? It appears we are, and so could we please have this placed on the consent agenda for March 30th, 2015? No.
Public hearing.
Public hearing? Oh, I see. Well, I'm just reading off my list here, so it doesn't say anything about a public hearing. We want to make this a public hearing? I'd love to do that if that's what we need to do.
April 6th.
Huh?
No, March 30th.
So March 30th, but it's not on the consent agenda, that's a public hearing.
Says April 6th on
Okay. We got little sheets up here that kind of direct us along, and I'm just reading off of them, so. We need a public hearing, I think, on this. So what day do we want that public hearing?
March 30th.
March 30th? Okay. Let's do that. Let's place this
Does that give us
resolution.
enough time to notice it, though?
This one, according to Kathleen, this one doesn't require any specific notice, so
Okay.
All right.
we're good there. That was our original thought, was the 30th, but it was written in as the 6th, thinking that the commission may prefer to put it at an evening meeting. Based on the discussions that were had at the agenda meeting last week, there was a decision to go ahead and move it up as quickly as we could, and all I really need to do is change 2 words and get a formal ordinance number from Leslie Ann tomorrow, and we can have it ready for the
In
30th.
the first reading and the public hearing.
And then the second reading on consent would be on the 6th of
And then the
April.
clock ticks for the 30 days.
Correct.
We've got 2 builders ready to submit.
All right.
They're waiting on this.
Let's do it. Did you want to say something? You're just waving? All right. Okay, so I think the confusion is over, at least on this issue. And what will happen is we are going to place this resolution for a public hearing March 30th, 2015. All right. Thank you very much for your patience. We have a few more items. Next is administration report, I think.
One more, Basin 3 construction.
I think I have too many sheets of paper. Maybe that's my problem. I was looking at one, okay. Yeah, no, okay. We have one more. Okay, one more, sorry. Yeah, I need a, what do you call, breather. It looks like we have another resolution, right, by Mike Michael? Is that correct?
That is correct,
Okay.
Your Honor. Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. This is really a housekeeping item. Several weeks ago, the commission approved a funding package from Department of Ecology for the Basin 3 project. And in completing that and getting everything to them that they need to sign on their end, we realized that it was missed and forgotten, thanks to the loss of our previous capital projects manager, that DOE actually requires the action the commission took at their meeting a few weeks ago to be documented in a resolution. So what you have this evening before you is that resolution documenting the action the commission took back, I didn't even put the date in here. It was about 3 weeks ago to actually formally accept the Basin 3 funding from the Department of Ecology. And that is for the total of $6,347,000 from Ecology, $1,973,882 of which is Centennial Grant, with a $198 SRF loan at 2.3% for 20 years.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, it appears that we are in agreement on this issue to place this on the consent agenda for March 30th, 2015. No public hearing needed on this one. All right, administration report.
This week, I'm working on the retreat that we will have scheduled for April the 3rd on Friday. That'll be at the fire station. Also, we're planning to do something a little different for a retreat format, and that is invite public comment. So if people have budget ideas, then it's my intention to include in the setup, along with the mayor and commission's agreement, of course, that we invite public comment during that period. So that would be, apparently the SPAT committee has talked to our staff and has an idea that we're to spend dollars on porta potties in the town, having the commission or the city pick that up at the end of the year. There will be many ideas for the budget, and we talked about the way that might be presented, and it seemed to me to be appropriate that we just open it up. So allow the SPAT committee to come in and make their pitch. If there are other members of the public that think that have other ideas for enhancing programs or new programs or whatever, that we invite them in to do that. And this is a really important meeting because at the end of it, then all of the staff will bring their ideas, the commissioners will bring their ideas, public will have their ideas, and then the idea at the end of the meeting is for the commissioners to, having heard all of them and been able to ask questions and so on, to rank them in priority order. And then that will allow us later on to make budget decisions in terms of what's funded and what's not based on the priority order. So everything in one place. In addition, this is the first step in a process that will work throughout the rest of the spring and through the summer and into the fall. That will give us a better preparation and a more transparent way to do budgeting compared to what we've done in the past. So anyway, so just to let the public know that they'll be invited to speak. We will limit the presentation time, probably 3-4 minutes, because we'll have enough of them where if we take longer than that, we'll be there too long during the course of the day. And then that'll be just a presentation time. Then there'll be some time left for questions and answers as well for each of the items. The only other thing I have to report is I'll be out Thursday and Friday. I've got a conference to attend down in Portland. And so anyway, that concludes staff's, my administration report. Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had a question about the April 3rd meeting. We are intending for that to be an all-day meeting?
Pretty much, yes. We'll get you, the way I've got it planned out now, I think we'll finish mid-afternoon, but it could go shorter, it could go longer, just depending on how long it takes to get through the pithy part of the presentation, which is people's proposals for.
We won't have to bring our sleeping bags, though.
I should hope not.
I should hope.
So I'm just wondering, we will be able to get an agenda or a tentative agenda out ahead of time?
Yes.
So for people who want to come at a specific time?
I'm working on that, and I'm also, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. I've had it all evening. What we're having staff do now is for each presentation that they intend to make on the third meeting on the 3rd, we're having them submit those proposals in writing on a form that we've prepared for them. And I understand that there might be one or two that take a little longer than Wednesday, but that's the one that has the most of them.
Why is everyone looking at you, Greg?
So, at any rate, so you'll either Wednesday before I go, or maybe Monday evening at the latest, I'll be able to send you all a copy of that, so you'll have a chance to read it in advance of the meeting on Friday, a week from Friday.
Thank you.
All right, there is an opportunity again, general public comment. If anyone would like to speak about anything generically, just come up here, and if you already signed up, we'll use that. Kathy, you'd have to sign up, please. And so seeing as how you're coming up here, I'll let you sign up and you can speak first. Oh, sorry. Oh, gosh, public hearing stuff. Put that in a separate pile. I guess Mr. Davis and also Mr. Cooper will have to sign on that other sheet to be proper. State your name for the record, please.
Kathy McDowell, 326 South 5th Street, Shelton. And I just have a couple things that's been going over in my mind this evening since this meeting. Is there going to be, for this transportation district, is there going to be the discussion $20 tab or an increase in our city sales tax? Will that be weighed? I'm just putting that to you. I kind of like, if we're going to do one or the other, the sales tax seems better, because if we're putting the money towards sidewalks, everybody walks on the sidewalks, repair the sidewalks or whatever that needs to be done. Everyone uses the lights. So I'm thinking if we're going to do one or the other, a sales tax, raising that a little bit might be a better idea, because it engulfs the entire city, and it also engulfs people out in the county that come into town to shop. They're using our streets also. So I'm just, if one or the other, I encourage you to maybe think about a slight increase in the sales tax. Then,
just for clarification, we already voted, there will be the Transportation Benefit District.
Right. I'm talking about how you're going to fund it. Yeah. Right. And that's just my opinion. So then this next one is about Olympic panel leaving. I just have a couple questions. Why are they going to Oregon?
The business
this is
got
what I
sold.
heard.
Business got sold.
The business got sold, okay.
The business got sold, and the new buyers are moving it to Oregon.
Okay, so let's say that it didn't sell and they just decided to move it to Oregon. Is this a Washington State issue as far as incentives to keep businesses in Washington? Are there more incentives to take them to Oregon? Business-wise, what are we doing as a city to keep businesses here and encourage businesses to grow and thrive? And I just wanted to put that past you to think about as a commission, to think about our businesses and our future businesses that come in and how to keep the ones we have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is, it looks like Kathy McDowell. Here's a list right here, sir. You'd have to sign on this one. I'm sorry, Kathy spoke. Mr. Cooper, you'd have to sign. Right, on this one, we have difference for public hearings. Yes.
Thank you very much, Commission. Forrest Cooper, 807 South 14th and 409 Railroad. I just wanted to bring up a concern about public's input to the visioning process. I attended the chamber luncheon that you all were at this last Thursday, and it was a wonderful presentation that Forterra put on. I think they have some really cool ideas and some good ways to get people to work together. The one thing that really concerns me about the overall plan is the fact that there are only 2 opportunities for the public to have input formally and present. I mean, you can email them if you have ideas and things like that, but there's only 2 meetings. So if you can't make those, you're kind of out of luck. So we have to do everything we can to make sure that we get the word out to everybody about those particular events that are coming up. And Forterra made it clear that it's not their job to do that. It's the city and the chambers. The chamber said that they have a publication that they send out to people. However, that's already went out for the quarter, so I don't see how that's going to reach anybody in time. I know the chamber's going to do a good job getting to their members and their membership, their businesses that are involved, to let them know about these meetings. However, I'm concerned about the people that have chosen to not be a member of the chamber, for instance, or the residents, because I think the residents' input is just as valuable. So I want to encourage the city to do everything they can to get that wording out there. One very simple way to do it is to print off a stack of forms and go stick them in the mail slots at every one of those businesses downtown or in the mailboxes of every resident downtown. I'm sure you guys probably have somebody on staff that might be able to get out and take a walk and drop some of those in the slots. It doesn't mean you have to go face to face, shake hands, and talk and debate with every business owner on their ideas through this process. You could do it before any of the businesses open up. I just really want to encourage the city to do everything they can to let every business and resident know about the meetings coming up for the visioning process, because I think our town represents all of us, and all of that needs to be presented to Forterra so they could come up with a really cool plan that encompasses all that input. Thank you so much.
Duly noted. Thank you.
I think I would be reluctant to go place flyers in mailboxes. No, it's against the law.
Oh,
The business mail slots, you can do all day long.
Mr. Davis, just state your name for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom Davis. Just for clarification, we might have 230 employees at Olympic Panel, but only 15% of those employees actually live in Mason County. That's important. It's no less of an economic disaster, but at the same time, it's not of the magnitude that it might seem. I also want to talk about the Forterra and Green Diamond and Chamber and City collaboration. On paper, I'm all for it. I read the proposal. I read the scope. There's nothing that I would take exception to. I think it's a wonderful idea on paper. But bear in mind, and I've been following Forterra since they were Cascade Conservancy for quite a while. Their first foray into the county was a miserable disaster, creation of an LMD out in Lake Watzel to try and offset some of the damaging effects that the county commissioners did when they swapped some zoning and changed some definitions for forest land, and then Forterra came in to try to facilitate a lake management district that would include purchasing property in a conservancy. We spent a lot of time, a lot of money on it, and they were replete with a tremendous amount of bad advice, and the whole thing fell on its face. That is gone. My concern, again, and I am for this, I am for this proposal actually, but I have some caveats, I have some concerns. When you have a Forterra and Green Diamond, and as far as I'm concerned, in Mason County, Forterra is nothing but an arm of Green Diamond. They are a lobby firm. They do lobby for the timber industries, and I have some concerns about what happens if they run into some sort of a conflict. These folks, the Walkable and Livable Communities Institute, I actually called them today. I got a recording, but I wanted to ask them about their firm. So what happens when these entities who are intertwined, where board members serve on different boards but within the same trifecta of companies, and they come into a conflict? For instance, suppose conventional wisdom says we're not going to have any more log trucks coming down and identifying ourselves on Railroad Avenue as an industrial arterial. We're not going to do that because that's not in compliance with our vision of a walkable community. Do you actually think that's going to make it onto the list of recommendations? No, it's not. Simply because those interests are more important than the walkability of Shelton. So as we go down this road, and I understand that this is probably going to be voted on the 30th, we need to keep a jaundiced eye. Yes, thank you. We need to keep a jaundiced eye on this. We need to make sure that our concerns come before anyone else's in the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like Mr. Busaka.
Bill Busaka, 612 West Birch Street, Mayor, Commissioners. Two issues I'd like to address. One is the whole issue about fees and housing and all that kind of jazz. Things have fundamentally changed in housing in America. I mean, if you bought a diddly squat lot in California in the 1950s or 60s like Bing Crosby and Bob Hope, you could have made money just if you fell asleep on the side of the curb. Things have fundamentally changed after the stock market had a couple of forays in the past. Alan Greenspan cut Wall Street loose, and we had the housing meltdown in 2008. And what we're seeing is we're seeing kids come out of college that can't really find jobs. So before you blame fees on the lack of houses being built in Shelton, realize that all of America, the entire country, is in a world of hurt housing. Housing that went up for years, whether anybody did anything correctly or not, through the 50s, 60s, 70s, pretty well flattened out in the 80s. Middle-class Americans from 1980 till now have gained virtually no net increase in income. And they are the ones that are the backbone of this country. The top 2 to 5% have greatly increased their ownership of America and the money that they have in America, and by and large, they don't make America run. They can't buy 437 lawnmowers, they can't buy 300 plasma screen TVs, they don't make housing happen. The kids coming out of college they're living at home, they barely have money. So you're not going to see housing increase no matter what you do with fees with what's going on in America in terms of the housing market. And so that's the first thing, that's the most important thing that I can think of in terms of expectations for housing. As far as, OPP is concerned and Kathy McDonald's concerns, if you read books about American history, America's whole foreign policy has been run on corporate greed for the last 130 years. Corporations run this country, they do what they want to do in this country, and they come and go at their own beck and call, including all the laws in the legislature in Washington, D.C., which we have no control over. So I know that you're concerned about what could we do to keep OPP here. Trust me, believe me, corporations come and go at their own will. Good example is Archer Daniels Midland, who decided to pass the laws about ethanol for fuel because we need fuel. As a result, there are tortilla riots in Mexico because the Mexicans can't afford their main staple issue of food, which is corn. They could give a damn that we're putting our corn in our gas tanks. They can't eat. And so the thing is that realize that corporations are going to come and go. They're going to move from state to state. They're going to conglomerate or break up things, or like Certified, they're going to buy and trash a company if they feel like it. So Kathy, I understand your concerns, but trust me, the corporate people are going to run this country whether we like it or not.
Thank you for your comments, and I'm glad that at Mayor Shelton, I don't have to worry about those issues. I got smaller issues. So anyway, I think we're getting close to the end of our meeting here. Let me go back to my notes and see what we can do on this, and administration final touches. Yes?
I do. I have two. Next week, we have a couple, 3 budget modifications I need to bring before the commission, kind of housekeeping things for our 14 budget. And then a good piece of news is our well 4 pump is back repaired and is pumping water as we speak. So that's all good.
Good.
However, it did cost a little more than we had authorization for, so I need to bring that back to get your blessing. It's like $1,000 more, but
okay.
I need to bring that back before the commissioners because it was beyond Dave's and my level of authorization. So.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, our next meeting will be March 30th, 2:15 at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.
No, I did. I just thought that was a funny thing. It's like I can just picture us all getting arrested.